Go ahead and paint you a picture of the social construct of race.
Welcome back, my Afro-Latinxers. Today I am going to be talking about the social construct of race. In this video, I'm going to be explaining what is the social construct of race. Where did this construct start? Also, I want to talk about the difference between the social construct of race in the US compared to the Dominican Republic. And lastly, I want to mention, why is it important to understand the social construct of race depending on where you live or where you migrate to? So let's get into it. So the reason why I wanted to talk about the social construct of race is because I have a TikTok page. If you are not following me, please go over to TikTok and follow me at Afro Latinx United on TikTok. I had made a video talking about the social construct of race in the Dominican Republic compared to the US. Now, here's the video so you can see.
I'm gonna go ahead and paint you a picture of the social construct of race. This is my brother. He was born and raised here in the USA, and in the US, he is considered a black man. Now, a couple of years ago, he went to the Dominican Republic to get his citizenship there, and on his documentation, he was marked down as Indio Claro, which is a racial categorization in the Dominican Republic. Now, these are the racial categories that they have in the Dominican Republic, which also include all of these right here. And since my brother is a Indio Claro, he's considered a white mulatto range, which would be his race in the Dominican Republic. Now, the social construct of race was created to divide people, to keep some people at the top and some people at the bottom, which means that for my brother, in the Dominican Republic, he has more privilege than here in the US. However, just because my brother has privilege in the Dominican Republic doesn't mean that all black people have privilege in the Dominican Republic or that racism doesn't exist.
So as you can see in this video, I was talking about my brother's experience going to the Dominican Republic and applying for his Dominican citizenship. And during this process, he was told by the Dominican officials, the people that work at the consulate to get your citizenship, he asked, what race should I put? And they told him, you should put Indio Claro. Now, I'm not saying that this was all these words, Indio Claro was one of the options that you pick, but I'm just saying that the person that works at the place where you get your citizenship told my brother that that is his race, okay? Now, I also used some resources from a book called Black Behind the Ears, a resource that was taken out of another resource, a research study done in the Dominican Republic, okay?
So a lot of what was said in that video, it just doesn't make sense.
So what part doesn't make sense? The fact that Dominican officials put on my brother's application that he was an Indio Claro? Or is it this chart that doesn't make sense? Because at no moment did I say that this is the national chart that is used on all documentation in the Dominican Republic. You can find this chart in this book. I highly recommend that you read it. This chart is originally from this study done in 1974. This study is not from the 1500s. Read the whole study. This is a qualitative study done in the Dominican Republic during the 70s to see if Dominicans had a homogeneous way of describing race. The study found is that there's no homogeneous way to talk about race in the DR. An interesting thing they did find is that if you're negro, you can be identified as Indio. Indio meaning anything other than fully black.
The Dominican Republic does not have like set in stone racial categories, only for the census, which you're allowed to play black, white, and mixed, mulatto, all right? But the resources that I showed do have validity, and they are based on studies and facts. Facts over feelings, okay? Facts over feelings, all right? But before we talk about my brother's experience, okay, I want to answer what is the social construct of race? Now, the social construct of race is and was created in order to maintain control and power over a certain group of people depending on their phenotype, their look, the color of their skin, okay? Now, this concept started, anybody knows? Any guesses? Yes, during the first voyages of the transatlantic slave trade, or when Christopher Columbus came over to the Americas. This is when the whole concept of race started, was born, okay? If it was born in the island of Hispaniola, and then we also see the social construct of race here in America, and you still see it, that means it's not gone, okay? I want to point that out. Just because you do not deliberately identify with a race doesn't mean racial issues, racial biases, racism within the system has been eradicated, okay? I want to point that out. Remember, the social construct of race was created to divide people, control people based on their race. That whole concept, race-based systems, wasn't a thing up until the early 1500s, okay? When Christopher Columbus came over here on his boat in 1492, okay? That is when the concept started. Any other concept that you see prior to Christopher Columbus is not racism. It's either classism, xenophobia, sexism. Race-based construct of power and control started in the Americas. Let's get that right. Let's get that clear, okay? So now that we know that the social construct of race is focused on control and power because of the color of your skin, which started in the Americas, specifically the land of Hispaniola, okay? Now that we got that out of the way, let's break it down between the US and the Dominican Republic. When you look at the island of Hispaniola, which is now DR and Haiti, and you see how the history played out, Christopher Columbus came, the encomienda system was put into place. He then and his people brought over enslaved Africans to work the land and to make money for the Europeans, right? The people in power, okay? Encomienda system enslaved Native Americans, okay? The natives of Hispaniola, because of who they were, because of their race, because they were not white, they were part of a system that enslaved them. Same thing for our African people from the beautiful continent of Africa. Their people were brought over from Africa, pulled away, ripped away from their country, okay, and brought to the Americas and labeled as Black so that they were to be seen as less than white and less than Native, okay? That is the system, the social construct, the beginning social construct of race. Race-based, not religion-based, not ethnic-based, race-based. As time goes by, you will see the Spanish caste system being put in place. It's a funny time between the 1600s and the 1800s in the land of Hispaniola, and more specifically on the Dominican side, because the Spanish had just left Hispaniola the Spanish had left the Dominican side in shambles. Just, they didn't care. And the Haitian side was being, ruled and ran by the French. So because the Dominican Republic was so just like, it wasn't being watched over, the Spanish, the Dominican people did whatever they wanted, right? The enslaved freed themselves. We know about Sebastian Lemba, who led the slave revolts in the land of Hispaniola, right? His team of cimarrones or maroons, which helped spread through the Dominican Republic and eventually helped to start the chain reaction towards ending slavery in the Dominican Republic. So when you look at that history and how the slave revolts had a lot of influence to the population in the Dominican Republic, and how they would side when push came to shove, when it came to ending slavery on the whole continent, right? Go figures that 80% of the Dominican side would side with Haitians, because most of them were of African descent. You couldn't really tell if they were mixed, right? And of course, you're gonna side with the side that's trying to just free all slaves. Unlike 20% of the Dominican population, and I'm talking about in the 1800s, only about 20%, 15 to 20% of the population was against the Haitian unification, because they were the elite. They were considered the elite, okay? Now, when you look at the Dominican population right now, the current Dominican population, most of these people, right, like 80%, just like before, come from the descendants of people that most likely wanted to side with the Haitians. But because of that small 20% who have had power, not only because they were of lighter skin mulatto, but because they were backed by the US, okay? And the US really helped to solidify this Indio-Hispano identity that Trujillo wanted Dominicans to embrace, in order to make it seem like all Dominicans were the same and all Dominicans were equal, when in reality, he only wanted to impose that label as a race identifier for Dominican people, so that 80% of the population wouldn't fight back against the inequalities that existed and still exist in the Dominican Republic today. That 20% of the population from the 17 and 1800s played a major role in the media, in the education system, in the policies that were written for the Dominican people. Hence, power, because they controlled things, they controlled the narrative, okay? Now, when you have 20% of the population controlling the narrative of the Dominican people and saying, well, you know what? We're not gonna say that we're different, that we're black, right? We're gonna say that we're all Dominican, because then that's gonna shy 80% of the population from fighting against the 20% of the population who holds most of the wealth and who held most of the wealth and the land back then. And if you look at it now, same thing. There's only 20% of the population that owns 55% of the wealth in the Dominican Republic. Now, when you look at here in the US and the social construct of race, everything was just black and white, black and white, black and white. Now, when you look at somebody like me, right? I'm Dominican American, right? Both my parents are Dominican, born over there. I came, and then they came here and had me, okay? For a person like me, right? People are not gonna come up to me and say, oh, you're Dominican. No, they're gonna just say you're black because I look black, right? Because I'm black. And we've established that, right? Black comes in different ethnicities, okay? The sooner we recognize that, the sooner we'll understand the social construct of race as well. So here, it doesn't matter whether you're Dominican, Jamaican, Mexican, and I'm talking about Mexican black, like, it doesn't matter where you come from, your ethnic background. If you look black, you're black. When you're looking at the social construct of race here in America, power, when we think about power, white people have power, black people don't. It was created to control people, right? To control melanated people who have skin color on their skin. And the only thing here, right? Whereas in the Dominican Republic, everybody's just seen as Dominican because they don't want to identify with a race. Over here, everybody's seen as American, but also we also have a category where we also get to identify with race. And this helps because it helps to gather data on people and what communities need certain funding, which ones are having disparities and stuff like that. So we basically get insight as to the inequalities that exist here in America because of the racial categorization of race. Whereas in the Dominican Republic, because they don't use that, then they don't have no statistics or status to show the inequalities based on race in the Dominican Republic. And even though that's not like a big thing to identify with race in the DR, we all know that there are racial disparities in the Dominican Republic. I'm not saying that classism doesn't exist.
Welcome to the myth that Dominican Republic is a post-racial society. Living in a post-racial society means that you are living in a time period where racial discrimination and prejudice doesn't exist. So if racism and prejudice doesn't exist in the Dominican Republic, why have most of their presidents, like 99% of them, have been mulatto, mestizo, or white? They've only had like one or two black presidents. If it's a post-racial society, then why are most of the Dominican rich people white or indio claro? And these are just few examples. We haven't even mentioned representation in the media, in the education system. Most of these people in power don't look like the average Dominican, and also are dark Dominicans, because there are a lot of Dominicans who are darker than me. So if DR was a post-racial society, the government group and the group of richest people in the Dominican Republic would look like the range of people that live in the Dominican Republic. But that is not the case. Part 2 in the comments.
However, we can admit that classism is exacerbated because of a person's race, or because of the color of their skin, because of colorism. And let's not forget that colorism ends in ISM, meaning it is systemic. Colorism is a systemic issue. A lot of Dominicans like to separate racism from colorism, but no, racism and colorism go hand in hand. You can't have colorism without racism. It is institutional. You might not have a law that says, well, we're going to discriminate against dark-skinned Dominicans. However, if you have young girls going into school and they can't wear their hair curly, that is discrimination against Black people, because Black people most likely have curly, coily, kinky hair. And if somebody can't go to school because of their hair being curly, that is racial discrimination, okay? So let's not act like racism doesn't exist in the Dominican Republic, and let's not make it seem like it's just classism. It's everything combined, okay? And because of people's skin color, things get worse for them. And we can also add on because of a person's sex, right? If you're a woman in the Dominican Republic, it is 10 times worse than being a man, because you are more likely to be forced into marriage, have a teen pregnancy, be put in poverty. If you're Black, it's more likely to happen to you in the Dominican Republic, or of darker skin. Or if you're Haitian, come on, y'all. You're not gonna tell me that these issues are not systemic, okay? Race is just another little mechanism that exacerbates the issues that are happening in the Dominican Republic. Now, I'm not saying that it's worse in the DR than here in America. I'm not saying that. I think racism, colorism is racism and colorism. You can't, like, let's not play the oppression Olympics. But I think that the most important thing here to admit to ourselves is that it is an issue. And without speaking about it, you can't change it. It's kind of like, let's say a person has cancer, right? They're sick and they know that they have cancer, but they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go to the hospital. So what do you think is going to happen? The cancer is going to keep growing. Okay. Same thing with racism. If you don't talk about it, right? If you don't pinpoint where the issues are and figure out how you can fix them, it's just going to keep getting worse. It is what it is. So lastly, I wanted to answer in this video, why is it important to understand the difference between the social construct of race? Well, it's important because when you travel, for example, let's use the instance of my brother. He went to the DR to get his citizenship, and he knows that the social construct of race is viewed differently in the Dominican Republic versus in America. And that's one of the biggest reasons why he was prompted to ask, hey, what should I label myself for my race? To the Dominican officials who work at the consulate for your citizenship, right? Because he understands the social construct of race in the Dominican Republic. He knew to ask about what his race should be marked down, okay? Now, what did that do for him? That probably helped to diminish maybe any problems that he might have had just to get his citizenship. Because let's say he would have put black, negro, they probably wouldn't have given him his citizenship because Dominicans cannot be considered black. Dominicans cannot be considered black. And if you know anybody, any Dominican who has put their race down as black, please put it in the comments and let me know. I would like to know. But because my brother knew and understood the social construct of race in the Dominican Republic, he avoided issues for getting his citizenship. And it's the same thing for Dominicans that come here to America. If you come to America and you're like, oh, I'm Dominican, when you're encountered by racist situations from cops, from teachers, from doctors, because you don't understand the social construct of race, you're gonna get racialized. You're not gonna be able to avoid racial issues. One great example is here in America, women that look like me. I'm a Dominican woman, and there's a lot of women, Dominicans, that look like me. But when you go out to the world, they're gonna look at you as a black woman. Now, because I'm a black woman in America, I know that in America, the statistics for birth rates and birth mortality and black women and birth, right, is horrible, right? So many black women and children die here in America because of racist teachings in the medical system.
So I'm a second-year medical student right now, and my roommates and I were talking about times where we've witnessed biases in medicine so far in our medical education. My roommate reminded me of a time when he was in a suture clinic practicing his suturing skills on a banana. He asked the question of, how do you know what needle size to use, and how do you know what thread size to use? And the physician said it correlates with the thickness of the skin. So for example, the skin in your eyelid is much thinner than the skin in your lower back. But then they said that needle size can also correlate with a person's ethnicity, implying that different skin colors have different thicknesses of skin, which isn't true. And for me, the craziest part is when my roommate came home to tell me this story, my first instinct was to Google it and make sure it wasn't true and that I wasn't missing anything. That's literally how racism is perpetuated in the field of medicine. In the United States, black newborn babies are 2 times as likely to die as white newborns during delivery. But a study published in July 2020 showed that when black doctors deliver black babies, their mortality rate is cut in half, especially in complicated cases. The same relationship was not found between white doctors and white newborns, and there was no improvement in maternal mortality when birthing mothers share the same race as their physician. Why a doctor's race makes a difference is complicated and needs more research, but understanding why can literally save lives.
Now, I know that. And I know that the world is going to perceive me as a black woman, right? And because I know that and understand that social construct of race, I deliberately went out of my way to look for an OBGYN that will cater to me and understands not only that I'm a Latina, but I'm also a black woman, right? And doesn't have those stereotypes ingrained into their medical practices, right? Because I understood the social construct of race. I was able to avoid having a horrible birth experience with my son. Whereas there's thousands of Dominican women that come into here, they don't even know that. First of all, they don't know the statistics of black women and giving birth. And then they don't know that the doctors will see them as black. So then what ends up happening? They fall into that statistic of infant mortality rate and black moms who probably die giving birth or after birth because they didn't know and they didn't understand the social construct of race. Now, I'm not saying like this is a big pill to swallow because it's a big responsibility on our own, but that's why I'm here, to explain to y'all that there is nothing wrong with identifying with black, right? If anything, it gives you empowerment. And I think that until we solve the racial issues around the world, we will have to identify with the black term until those problems are resolved. Until those racial problems are resolved, classism and sexism, sexist problems, then we have to keep using them. And once when they're solved, then we can just all be humans, right? We can all be humans. We don't have to like feel like we have to pick a race, but it's an issue. And without the words to explain the issue and the solutions, you can't fix the issue, okay? So y'all, I hope this video was helpful. I know I fed you so much information, but if you would like to hear anything else, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and hit that subscribe button for my next videos. Bye, y'all.